Guys, I'm so excited to be presenting today. We're going to be talking about storytelling, all right? It's been a passion I'm really really passionate about. So I'm going to be sharing this and everything that I can at the moment. I want some actionable steps for you guys, okay? So, what is the formula of powerful and persuasive presentation? In my expert opinion, it's this: a perfect combination of message, story, and audience. A powerful message is only useful if it can find its audience. And an audience is only going to pay attention if you're invited on a journey through story. The old age of people don't buy based on facts, they buy based on how they feel certainly rings true when it comes down to presentations. Humans are born storytellers and have been since the dawn of time. Stories have helped us provide meaning, context, and a sense of purpose to all forms of communication. However, when it comes down to presentations, many of us are guilty of bombarding our audience with facts and figures, keen to get to the point, right? Without building relevance and empathy. By doing this, we miss a vital opportunity, leaving a lasting and valuable impression, and leaving our audience wondering, what on earth was the message it was that you're trying to communicate, right? It's my goal by the end of today that you have a greater understanding as to what is involved in providing a presentation that nails all three: message, audience, and story. So warning, you've all been guilty of brain dumping our ideas onto a slide. I certainly have. Without actually thinking on how to deliver a persuasive message. Worse still, we tend to vomit anything and everything onto the slide without, it's usually at the last minute, and thinking we can wow our audience with our vast depth of knowledge, only alienating them instead. Unfortunately, content creation for presentations is a fine art, and more often than not, less is more. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but no one is going to read all of your slides, content while you're presenting. People only read what is relevant to them and retain the information they deem to be important. Not only this, but studies have proven that it is next to impossible to read and listen at the same time. We are more effective at listening and retaining information than reading it. I'm here to provide you with some action steps on how to craft your ideal pitch. I want to give you some valuable information on what it takes to create a persuasive presentation. There's a lot more to a successful persuading an audience than simply knowing your subject matter and expecting others to take your word for it. In fact, one of the most important parts of being able to persuade is to present well. Be a good presentation only comes from good planning. Whether it's a 2-hour or a short 10-minute talk, it's still going to be important to deliver your message clearly with the time you are given. And in this case, 15 to 20 minutes. Also, it's important to remember that a presentation is a marathon, not a sprint. Practice, practice, practice makes perfect. The more you practice delivering your content, whether it be with a coworker or your furry friend or the mirror, the more and better natural you appear in delivering your message to people that really matter, your audience. Only through careful planning and practice, your delivery can be assured of an impactful presentation that hits all the high notes. As a presenter, we tend to feel like we hold the most power in the room. It's no wonder we are the person people come to listen to or watch on a Zoom, standing up on stage, or in front of a room. All eyes are focused on our direction. But in reality, the presenter comes in at number 2. The audience is the most important person in the room. They are the ones that you wish to persuade to buy your product or idea. They are ultimately the ones who determine if your presentation was successful or not by the actions that they take after the presentation is over. This is arguably the most critical thing to remember when crafting your presentation, and often the thing that is most overlooked. one must ask themselves, what is at stake for the audience? What's in it for them? What will keep them engaged and interested? And more importantly, what part of your message will matter most to them and inspire them to act? This is how you can create a winning and persuasive presentation. It's important also to remember to deliver your content in appropriate audience ways. Who are they? What makes them tick? What tone of voice is appropriate in addressing them? The energy and impact you make on your audience invariably bounces back to you in the form of an active and engaged audience. If you remember, they hold the power. Let's face it, presenting is challenging at the best. In fact, 73% of us have an innate fear of public speaking. It's fear worse than death for some people. And nothing is more challenging than having to do so in front of senior executives. To start with, like most audience members, they are time poor. However, it's how they make decisions that sets them apart. A long drawn story isn't going to work for them most of the time. A short and relevant message that gets to your ask quickly and effectively will. They tend to make their decisions the same way, quickly and efficiently. So cut to the chase to maximize your chances of buy-in. Brief them or set the agenda at the start of the presentation. Or better, beforehand, you can manage expectations and provide a clear call to action. There is nothing more dissatisfying to an audience, in particular one full of senior executives, than a wishy-washy presentation objective. More on this later. Nope. According to Nancy Duarte, arguably the world's leading authority on effective presentations, there is one thing your presentation that you must communicate through your presentation. It's your big idea. In fact, the whole point of a presentation is to showcase that idea. But first, you need to define what your big idea is. Your idea must be able to express in your own perspective rather than a generalization of people. This is your presentation, so it's important that you let the audience know that these are opinions coming from you. Next, give your audience a reason to value your idea and why it's significant to see it from your point of view. This will help them recognize why they should cooperate in achieving your goal. Take note that you should be able to state why the audience should act upon the idea you're presenting and how it would benefit them as well. Continue to encourage them to believe in the potential of your idea by letting them know the good things they can gain from it. As mentioned earlier, a presentation won't be fully complete without a complete call. The idea or plan is being presented will lose purpose if it fails to make a conclusion. When presenting, it is important that you to address your call to action clearly. Understand what your goal is. What can you do to make this true? How can you make your audience come into the picture? Manage and control your audience's emotive responses to your call to action. Break into subparts that they can make them easily manage and handle. Check off smaller goals from the list until you get to the final goal. This will allow them to see the actions they can create a big difference to reach the goal of the presentation. And more importantly, give them actions to take after the presentation has concluded. There is no denying storytelling is the buzzword at the moment. So why is it so important? Storytelling is a thing that creates a powerful connection between your audience and your presentation purpose. If your message is your destination and your audience is your passenger, then story is most certainly the vehicle that gets you both there. As mentioned earlier, the audience is the most important person in the room, conveying your message in a way that's relevant to them. By understanding their needs, fears, and desires, is the way to ensure that they walk away as advocates. A good story has a beginning, middle, and end. Structure your presentation in the same way. Audience members expect a certain flow, and our ability to connect with subject matter relies on how it is told to us. It's also important to ditch the jargon and not alienate anyone. Use terms that are general and easy to understand. When you do this, more people will be able to grasp the idea and find value in the goal you're trying to achieve. Emotion is critical. I'm not talking about the tear jerker unless that's appropriate, but what I'm talking about is the human to human connection. For a message to be memorable, it must be told in a way that has meaning for the audience. Data, facts, and figures will swiftly forgotten if they're not communicated in a way that connects with your audience. Make it personal and real, which will also help build trust and, all important, rapport with your audience. And lastly, set the scene. Outline the current state of affairs to show expertise. Helps control emotion and validates value. I've included here the infamous Duarte snake story, a story snake. Famous after years of research, she realized that all the successful speeches and presentations from Steve Jobs to Martin Luther King follows this very simple formula. It can be basically broken down into three parts: a beginning, a middle, and end, with a clear call to action, new list, and an analysis of what is and what could be. So what does this mean? What is applies to the current state of affairs. What is happening to the current marketplace? What could be relates to what could happen should the audience, world, market adapt your point of view. This is different to call to action. This is purely designed to give an idea of how good life could or should be if they buy into what you're selling or presenting about. It's important not to focus on selling. This will come later once you have painted a clear picture of how your audience can benefit from your ideal product. The story arc is broken down into how would you like to open your presentation, which is the beginning. Is there a midpoint, a tipping point, a reveal, or a surprise, which is the middle? And how would you like to end it, which is the end? And of course, what is your call to action? At the end of the presentation, you can offer what Duarte calls the new list, but I prefer to call it the vision of the future. It is the lasting impression you get to leave on your audience. A taste of the future that would exist should your audience adapt your point of view. Your vision of the future is the power of persuasion at its best. With presentations, the beginning is the critical part. Your opening line must be something your audience understands as well. This is the first step to building rapport and gaining their trust in you as the expert in the room. Set the agenda from the presentation early, and if your presentation follows the previous mentioned structure, your audience will follow easily. Allow them to focus on retaining information rather than trying to keep up with you. Tension is a great tool to use to build drama and control the emotion of the room, but tension must be carefully orchestrated. When used effectively, the audience will be able to get a clear picture of the potential changes that could come up from the implementation of your idea. With a great start, you're sure to be able to successfully get your message across while maintaining focus and attention on your audience. The most effective and persuasive presentations are the most impactful. The most memorable outcomes are achieved through presentations that offer something new, enticing, rewarding, and relevant. Statistics. Provide them with statistics that present big changes that probably would not be expected in the first place, but make sure it's realistic and true. Visuals. Make use of strong visuals. that can hit them emotionally. Dramatization. Convey your message through a dramatization that makes your audience think further to reach the point. Anecdotes. Even your own stories could be strong enough to leave a mark. Make it personable. It will endear your audience. Let us help tell your story more effectively. We can help you distill your message in a powerful and a persuasive presentation that would leave your audience in awe. Add me on LinkedIn, search for Scott Lee. You can see a lot of my awesomeness. I often share a lot of tips on this part, and speak to us if you like any help in strategizing and crafting your winning pitch.